This is a difficult moment in time for the families of the victims, the witnesses who were present, the driver who was involved, and all emergency services that attended this event. I want to thank the media for attending this briefing. I know that the public wants to know how the events unfolded, and we will be doing our best today to answer all of your questions. Please keep in mind that this incident happened less than 48 hours ago, and our investigators are working diligently on this case. Based on the information that I have available, what I can tell you is that on August 20th at 6:10 p.m., West Vancouver Fire and Rescue, BC Emergency Health Services, members of our department responded to a collision in the 400 block of Keith Road. The scene was chaotic and involved multiple victims. The driver, a female in her 60s, was leaving her residence by way of a shared driveway when she collided with a group of individuals who were attending a wedding at the adjacent property. The females were pronounced deceased. 2 females were pronounced deceased at the scene, and another 7 were transported to the hospital, 2 in critical condition. Members from our Integrated Lower Mainland Collision Analysis and Reconstructive Service, also known as ICARS, attended the scene and are assisting West Vancouver Police Department in this investigation. In the upcoming days and weeks, we will be collecting an abundance of evidence that will determine if charges will be laid, and we will be providing a subsequent update once we have that information. Traffic safety in West Vancouver is an important priority for our department and for our community. So we will be completing a comprehensive investigation to determine how this tragedy happened. This concludes my statement, and I will now open the floor to questions.
Just first of all, the discrepancy there, thanks for making yourself available public. The 7 in hospital, 2 dead. We were told 10 in hospital, 2 dead. I know it's kind of a dynamic situation, but what's the discrepancy of the numbers there?
Again, this is a tragedy that happened. I can only speak to the information that I was provided from the police department and investigators that were on the scene, and that was that 7 were transported to the hospital and 2 were deceased at the scene.
Okay, we were told 10 though by West Van PD all weekend. Has there been a change in that, or?
The information that I have is that 2 were deceased and that 7 individuals were transported to the hospital.
I guess the obvious question is, how does something like this happen? How does a driver accelerate to a speeds that we've seen the damage on site of this house? We've seen how close the driveway is.
Yeah.
That presumably she was driving out of. How does that happen? Did she have a medical incident? Like, what are you investigating? Maybe that's a better question for you. What are you looking at?
So I can speak to that, and then he can speak to the ICARS part. Right now it's too early to speculate. We know what happened, but we are trying to figure out how and why this incident happened.
The role of the Integrated Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Service is to identify, collect, and then analyze any physical evidence that we find at scene. It takes some time to go through the process, and to be honest, we don't have the answers yet as to what took place. But that is our role, is to determine the why and the how, and provide that information in a supplemental report to the West Vancouver Police Department in order to prepare a comprehensive report that may be provided to Crown.
Early indicators, presumably looking at the damage, speed would have been a factor. Can you speak to that at all, just by seeing that gate was blown away?
I wouldn't want to. Certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly. Thank you.
Obviously not implying any intent, but can you give us any sort of indication how fast that car was traveling when it struck those people?
If you don't mind just going to the podium.
Certainly.
Yeah,
is that best?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I wouldn't want to speculate on the speed at this point. Of course, it'll be something that we will be looking at. We'll be looking at all factors, causal factors associated to it, and speed will certainly be one that we will be looking at, but it would be wrong for me to speculate right now on estimating the speed, but it is something that we will be exploring, certainly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Constable Bravely, maybe this is for you, and if you don't mind just looking at me for the answers between the cameras for everyone. If you don't mind explaining, I understand some family members were here from the East Coast. Do you know if the 2 deceased were from the East Coast or a local from BC?
I don't have that information to you. Again, it was a very dynamic situation, and it was an absolute tragedy, and our entire community is affected by this.
Can you tell us
The driver, the 60-year-old female driver, people
Was she one of the people taken to the hospital?
Yes, she was taken to the hospital as well.
She was not one of the ones in critical condition.
She is, her condition is unknown at the moment. However, she is still in the hospital.
Are you looking into a potential medical incident?
Again, it's too early to speculate.
Are you investigating that angle?
Of course, it's something that we look at with every fatal collision, and this is what the Integrated Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Service does. We explore and investigate fatal and serious involved collisions around the Lower Mainland, around the southwest of BC, in fact. Last year we responded to over 250 files involving fatal and serious injuries. We look at the human factors of these investigations and see if they played a role in it as well. So it's certainly something that we will be exploring.
Can you tell us if it was an SUV, what type of vehicle it was? Obviously you have that information.
Yes, it was an SUV. It was a 2016 Range Rover.
Can you tell us if the driver was conscious when she was taken to the hospital?
I don't have that information for you.
Can you give us a little bit of sort of details on what was happening there, why so many people were gathered in a small area? We heard that it was a wedding celebration. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it was a wedding celebration with over 50 individuals at the adjacent property. It is a shared driveway, and it was a tragic incident that happened on what should have been somebody's happiest day of their lives.
What do we know about ages of the two deceased females?
The ages of the two deceased females, they're in their 60s.
Do you have ages as well with any of the other victims? I understand there is a young 1-year-old as well as a mother. Is there anyone else you're able to, I know you can't give names, but even ages or an idea of that?
Individuals who were injured were all adults.
Except for the 1-year-old then?
I don't have that information into the child.
I know initially we were told this was obviously an awful accident, no criminality expected in the early stages. Now you're saying you may consider criminal charges. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Certainly, I'd be happy to speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we'll be looking at is all the causal factors associated to this. As Constable Braithwaite mentioned, there was all sorts of, it was a very dynamic and chaotic scene. And what we're here to do today is to set the record straight, and that we will be exploring everything. We will make sure that if there is an element of criminality, that will be explored. And we will be providing, ICARS will be providing a supplemental report over to the West Vancouver Police Department. At that point, it may be provided to Crown Counsel for charge approval.
Alcohol, distracted driving, speeding, have any of those factors been ruled out in this incident yet?
At this time, again, it's too early to speculate. We will be doing a thorough investigation and we will find out all the answers that you guys need. At this point, we have many questions like all of you do, and we just need to find the answers.
Is it accurate to say they're all being investigated as possible contributing factors?
Yes, absolutely. That's not to say that they were actually causal factors, but this type of investigation, we have 2 people that have died as a result of this collision, and we want to make sure that we get as many answers as we can associated to this.
In your experience in these type of investigations, have you seen anything like this before in your career?
I've attended well over 100 fatal collisions in the 8 years that I've been seconded to the Lower Mainland Integrated Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Service. During that time, I have attended multiple fatalities, and they've all been tragic. This is the first time that I've attended, or sorry, our unit has attended a collision that involved a wedding and a gathering like this.
I understand it was a bride and a groom at this wedding. Are you able to confirm whether they were allowed to take the second also?
I don't have that information to you. Again, it was a tragic incident. It was a very dynamic situation for all of us to deal with. As many people were affected by it within our community, if anyone needs, we do have a fantastic victim services unit that's willing to provide any services or information to anyone that might be struggling at this time.
Have either of your agencies been able to interview the driver in her 60s yet?
Again, the driver was taken to the hospital and is currently in the hospital at this time.
But has she been spoken to yet by investigators?
It's not, I am unaware if she's been spoken to yet.
Have you recovered the black box, the ER of that vehicle? This 2016 Range Rover, does it have one?
The event data recorder that you're speaking of, also known as the EDR, is present within this vehicle. In order to acquire that data, we will be writing a warrant in order to collect it. That has not been completed yet.
Do you have any information on the relationship between the neighbors in this case? Was the driver in her 60s a guest at the wedding? Was she coming or going? Do you know what the relationship is like between the two families?
Again, it was a shared driveway, and I can't make any speculations at this time.
Have you been able to interview any of the other people in the hospital about their version of events?
Yes, everybody is going to be spoken to, so all witnesses, victims of the event, as well as the driver will be spoken to. Again, a thorough investigation will be conducted at this time. Any further questions?
Yes, actually, one more question. Under the Motor Vehicle Act, is it possible that we might see, if not criminal charges in this case, if it is determined to be just an awful accident, a tragedy, is it possible this driver could face any sort of repercussions under the Motor Vehicle Act?
We will collect all physical evidence. We will interview all parties involved. And at that point, based on the evidence that we have, we will move forward with any either Motor Vehicle Act or criminal code charges if warranted.
What can you tell us about the response? We know that West Van PD was on scene on Saturday when it happened. We were told the response by paramedics was quick. It was there was 14 at least, I think, units on scene. We know that this province is also in the midst of an ambulance crunch, a staffing issue. From your perspective, your departments, what was the response like on behalf of paramedics? We know they were on scene within 10 minutes. Can you speak to that at all?
It was a very large coordinated effort with West Vancouver Fire and Rescue, as well as BC Ambulance, BC Coroner's Service. We had assistance from the North Van RCMP, who sent members to assist us, North Vancouver Victim Services, as well as our own Victim Services team. So as it was a dynamic situation, we have many partnering agencies that we work with, and it was a joint effort.
I don't know if you can speak to this, but can you speak to the fact that a mass casualty event like this, when we are experiencing a major shortage in first responders, does this complicate things from your perspective? I know you're police, obviously, but is that concerning?
Well, we can't speak to the effects that are taking place around the province right now, but we do train closely with West Vancouver Fire Department for mass casualty events. In fact, we did that last year, and this was a scenario, or in the last year when we trained, it was a scenario that we looked at, and then it helped us immensely when we did get to this scene. As for our relationship with BC Ambulance, they were outstanding in what they did and how they helped out. They pulled out all resource for, as you mentioned, a mass casualty event.
You mentioned there's a warrant being written for the EDR. Is that 26 Range Rover in police custody at this point, or in the custody of ICARs, or we did not see it on the property yesterday?
We do have it in our possession.
You have it in your possession?
Yes.
And just to confirm, you said it was about 50 people that were in attendance at this event?
Approximately 50 individuals.
Last question for you, sorry. There was a house that we saw the people being. Were any other properties involved in the first response effort of this? We saw a house that was closest to Keith Road that it appeared to be.
Not to my knowledge. I know that it was a shared driveway with two houses on the same, on different properties, but with a shared driveway, and that's all that I know that was involved in that situation.
Before we sign off, can you give your full name and title again, please?
Yeah. Again, I am Constable Nicole Braithwaite, Communications Officer for the West Vancouver Police Department.
And I'm Corporal Dave Noon, last name spelled N-O-O-N. I'm a forensic collision reconstructionist seconded to the Lower Mainland Integrated Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Service.
One more question, sorry. Is this area being treated as a crime scene? We did not see crime tape up, police tape up yesterday.
We've collected all evidence associated to the scene at this time.
Was it treated as a crime scene on Saturday or Sunday?
When we have two deceased people, of course, we will be exploring if there is an element of criminality associated to it, certainly.
And is the driver in custody and hospital? I'm assuming no. Can you speak to that?
The driver, again, was transported to the hospital with unknown injuries and remains in the hospital. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Good. Thank you.
Is this, sorry.